Well, it turned out I couldn't cope with that little tiny map. And I figured, as long as I'm spoiled, I might as well take advantage of the fact that I bought this sucker. Now, it's almost entirely the same. There's just there's a few little things down here that are a little different. They actually have the gold stars here. I was worried about them because they're actually fairly common. I don't know if they got them all exactly right. I see some of the locations have a different spectral type or a different this or a different that. I'm not going to worry too much about that. For one thing, there may have been play balance reasons for making those changes, and I don't give a shit about that. This game is not, you know, it's not something you worry too much about play balance once you get to the more complex versions of it. And there's also a little bit of a, I may have gone over this before. There's a little area down here, oops, where there's like this soul exit wort, and I'm not sure that I see the inner wort belt, that doesn't exist. This doesn't make it out here. So this looks like it's getting me to here, right? Well, I got Skanda. I don't know where that is. I thought that existed on here. But, you know, what I'm kind of... Oh, no, that doesn't exist here. So, yeah, so I've got the Kniper belt, and that's here. And there's basically something... There's a comet that's near there that I don't have. And there's this. And I think that's about it. So there may actually be a future that I need to pull this little bit of map out and kind of try to fake my way onto here. But honestly, when I'm using a claim disk or something on the original map, I can't see shit under there. Whereas on this, I can still see a decent amount of the information, and I've just gotten really spoiled with the last playing, so I'm going to do that. And then I added another table over here, but we're fine with that. It is going to make explaining a little more difficult, though, because... and playing, because I won't be looking at a single table. I'll be spending a lot of time over here. That's just the nature of the game. So let's look at some of these modules. There's 4. All right. The freighter module, you have a deck of freighter cards, and you research them as normal. You're able to build them based on the spectral types at space factories. If you're the first person to industrialize any given spectral type, you get a free freighter matching that spectral type in your hand. If you build at Mercury, Venus, or Io, you can build this hyper beam rider, which I presume can only be built there. Maybe it says it on it. It's... it doesn't say anything on it that I see. I don't know. But maybe it says it somewhere. There's a lot of flavor text on these things, but that's mainly unimportant. Okay, to build a freighter, you have to use an ET production. You get your big cube to begin with. You may only have one freighter card built at a time and only one freighter stack. A stack co-located with a cube, which includes an outpost stack at a factory, a rocket stack carrying a mobile factory, is going to be immune to glitches. Basically, there's repair functionality aboard the factories. So that counts, your freighter counts, your big freighter counts as that as well, I guess. When you build the freighter, you use ET production. You have to match the product letter for where you can build it. The product letter determines the digital swaps that it can facilitate. 16.1. Now, I thought the digital swap wasn't dependent on that. Yep, it has to be the same as the freighter. Okay, so you're going to be dealing in kind of one product type based on your freighter for that. The Hyper Beam Rider freighter has no product letter, and it can only be built at a push factory, Mercury, Venus, Io, or, for player green, a promoted Bernal. The push factory adds 1 to its movement, and the Hyper cannot be sold on the free market. And I thought it said it can only be sold on the free market. Free market sale as hand card only. So, yeah, that's right. You can sell it as a card. You can't sell it at a site. Okay. Freighters move. If it's a push freighter, it adds 1 for each push factory. If it's a pushed freighter, one with push factories in existence. The freighter can land and lift off only by using factory assist. Otherwise, or sites of size 1. Now, the load limit, the freighter specifies a load limit indicating how much mass the freighter can carry as cargo. And we have that here along with the other information at the top. And all cubes get to fight if on a site. But per all kinds of other rules, if captured, swap the cube with one of the victorious player's color. Well, I don't know what those are all. This is all the combat rules. 8.4D. is factory combat, and we had a little bit of that in the scenario that I did over here with outpost combat, which maybe isn't allowed. That would have changed the play. 8.4 A, B, and C otherwise. If on a site, oh, so they fight as normal things if not on a site. The freighter card specifies a load limit indicating how much mass the freighter can carry. Okay. Some can only be loaded at a factory, not in low Earth orbit, not by just picking up crap that's lying around. And some freighters get bonus Hohmann pivots. They'll have this kind of thing on there, a little ship there. Onboard nuclear reactors and generators. Certain freighters and colonists have an onboard nuclear reactor or generator capability. This can be used for that purpose if you need the support for something else. There's anti-nukes as one of these. All reactors or onboard reactors are discarded as soon as they enter a player's hand. All reactors. I seem to remember, are these all nukes even if they don't have the N? Do any not? So this is a proton accelerator. That doesn't sound pleasant. See, I don't know if this would be anti-nuke. We may look at the original rules for this, because I don't remember. No reactor patents are allowed in the hands of any players. Yeah, my guess is anything with a reactor just gets discarded when that happens. That's going to cause problems for a lot of spaceships. So you want to avoid that if you're reliant on it. Freighters can be promoted at labs, I believe, no? Yeah. And you do a promotion activity. When you do that, all your cubes, your factories, become mobile. And you can also kind of swap your big freighter cube with a factory, which we'll talk about in a moment. If a cube lands on a claim, it can produce stuff just as if it's a legacy factory. It can use factory assist to enter or leave a claim, and this includes your big cube at this point. All your cubes have mass equal to your freighter card mass. This is relevant if the cube's taken as cargo for some reason. You can create mobile factory cubes in any location by doing production operations and decommissioning a robonaut and refinery. So you don't actually have to start it at a new claim if they're mobile. Okay, freighters have certain futures which are going to be victory conditions spelled out on them. So, and this is how these are going to go. We'll take a look at one here. Star Wisp future. If factory is at a lab type thing, one of these, and freighter cubes are at the EM and neutrino sunless points, sun lens points. Well, I don't know what that means. Which one is this called? Star Wisp. Let's see what if it spells it out a little bit better here. Under there we go. Place a disc in a future star. Okay, the future stars are maybe not in my game. Yeah, they're up here. So you get victory points for each future you get. And then the game will actually end based on them. That's a different module. And unfortunately, this is a lot harder to explain from the rules than probably it would be normally. But it's not sunk in enough on me. I've read it a couple of times, but I need the rules to work my way through it to get to playing, and I figured doing this will help me. If you have a freighter cube in both the EM and neutrino sun lens points on the map, plus a push factory and a TNO factory. Okay, we know what the push factories are. The TNO factories are going to be a factory in one of these. I don't know what these spaces are, though. So I'd have to find them if I'm searching for this. EM and neutrino sun lens points. Unfortunately, this is one of the problems, and there's no index into the map, as it were. So my assumption is this is out near here somewhere, but maybe it's not on this map. Maybe it's on this other map here. And I'd have to find it and figure out where that might go. And that is going to be a problem here. I think the futures are going to be my most problematic of my potential victory, of my potential modules that I'm going to add. So let's see if I can see it better here. Neutrino sun lens. Okay, that's one of them. Where is that? That's off near this. I think it's so it's not, the maps aren't exactly the same, right? So let's see, Jupiter is facing down like this. This is the neutrino sun lens, and it should be right about here, but I don't think it is. So this is this connection. You can see the map is different shaped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whereas this is only 1, 2, 3, 4. I would say it may be this space right here. And I could draw that in. Now, that said something else, didn't it? And you can see it's going to take this kind of effort to figure these things out because the two maps aren't exactly the same. Okay, so I need to find the EM space. I don't know what that's going to look like. I didn't know what neutrino sun lens was going to look like, and I have no idea what the EM space is going to look like. And you can see that this is, you know, a really annoying situation in a game to have to try to find shit like that. EM is going to be this thing that's off the map here. So I'm probably going to have to go off map to play if I'm playing that one. I may have to, you know, draw a little starburst on this map. And maybe, I don't know, if I had some paint or something, I could add extra stuff to the map. But chances are I'm just going to pull this map out and use it if I need to use stuff over there. But we'll see. Okay. Decommissioning freighters. If an unpromoted big cube is decommissioned, it goes back to your reserve and you can rebuild it as normal. You decommission the freighter card into your hand. Once promoted, however, you don't decommission it. Now this is an ambiguous rule, but essentially what you do is you swap the big cube with one of your little cubes and you decommission a little cube. But what if you have no little cubes on the board? You're probably fucked. I would say it gets decommissioned as normal and you have to start all over. That's not what the rules say, though. But okay. The next module is the Bernal module, and remember that's going to be handled by these little candy pieces here. I'm going to have to. Geez, package. I'm going to have to. Probably demonstrate to some extent. Okay, so each player is going to start off with their own Bernal card, which will be promotable later. And they have a token, which is going to start in a particular start orbit. Now that start orbit is going to be around Earth, and we have them in specific spaces dependent on the player. So let's see if this says. This is going to start at L3. So we look for the L3 location, and the Bernal will be there for the red player. Each player is going to have their own special location for the Bernal to start in. Now this thing is basically, I don't know if we don't really have a picture of it there. It's basically one of these. It's a big spherical, actually dumbbell shape to begin with, colony in space. And there should be a 7-pointed star to indicate the start orbits, but I don't really need that because they spell them out pretty easily on these places. And they're all near Earth, so you know where to find them. The stack of cards with the Bernal. And he supports whatever, colonists. This is going to be your Bernal stack. You keep these cards in the LEO stack slot on your rocket diagram. Your Bernal token indicates its map location. A Bernal card is indestructible and has no rad hardness, no events will hurt it. It can be promoted. And then the co-located cards are also immune with the exception of radiators. A Bernal, it cannot be decommissioned or captured. If it crashes, the other cards in the Bernal stack are decommissioned, but the Bernal card remains in the place where the accident happened. If it's promoted, however, it unpromotes. In combat, the other cards in a Bernal stack can be attacked. Let's sit down. I'm tired. As if rockets or factories, whatever, depending on whether they're orbiting or landed. If you have a Bernal in its start orbit, your boost capacities are enhanced. You're able to boost directly to the Bernal site, but you got to go through the rad zone, and that can be a problem. In particular, the modified thrust will be 3 for running through this. That means you subtract 3 from your D6, you may have trouble getting low radiation protection items getting through there, whereas if you had a high thrust rocket, you might want to launch to a low Earth orbit instead of the Bernal stack itself. That's, you know, your own option. I don't know where they go if they're in low Earth orbit, though. I guess you get an outpost marker. It's assumed you're going to launch stuff to the Bernal. And you may launch some of your components to the Bernal, like your Robonaut and your refinery and stuff, but launch the things that are kind of vulnerable up to low Earth orbit. Build a very fast little rocket to get to your Bernal so that you don't take the radiation damage. All your water, it can be stored there or low Earth orbit. Again, it's not really clear how to indicate which one's where. Okay, you're allowed to move your Bernal. It can be moved as either cargo in a megawatt or gigawatt rocket. If promoted, it can self-propel. If moved to a new L point that's adjacent to one or more factories of yours, you can support additional colonies. And this is how you create dirt sites, right? Once a Bernal moves out of its start orbit, its stack is no longer kept in the LEO slot. Instead, place it alongside your rocket stack. You're going to have to create new space to carry your rockets. I didn't see this. Well, game end conditions are changed. It didn't affect anything. I'm sure I saw it when I played the old version. Not recently, where it wasn't a matter of the victory conditions. They didn't have anything to do with that. Okay. If you move your Bernal out of its orbit, you shut down your faction privilege, boost enhancements, and Bernal WT storage. But you don't shut down your Bernal privileges. So this is important. If this thing moves, you no longer have your faction privilege. That's kind of weird. But it has its own privilege. So, for example, this one, I'm sure has one. I wonder where the Bernal privilege is. 19.5A. I guess they're not actually covered on the card, unfortunately. Yeah, each player has one. So this is antimatter production for red. It gives the red player an additional privilege to move one free Hohmann pivot per move on all of his spacecraft, rockets, freighters, and Bernals. It's a pity that's not actually spelled out on these, like a lot of things. Right. Okay. If you do move your Bernal and it's no longer in the start orbit, you can do a boost operation of 10 water to put a replacement Bernal there. This is going to be your ersatz Bernal, and you use your second Bernal token or a claim disk if your second token is in use as per 9.5b, which is something under dirt propelled Bernals, and I don't understand why that would be here. Oh wait, 9 or 19? 19.5b, yeah, I don't understand why dirt propelled uses an extra. You need a, like with the rockets needing a marker, you need a marker over on your track for how much fuel you have on board. That's why you're going to need that. Okay. So, where are we? So the ersatz Bernal is promoted and functions as your original one did, except it can't be moved. You get your faction privilege back, you can boost to its location, and you can store your water there. And it adds a colonist to your maximum human colonies or colonists in space. If they survive the radiation cards boosted at the same time or after your ersatz Bernal is boosted, always end up at your ersatz Bernal. They are stored in the LEO slot. That sounds a little different from this. Like this seems to say you have the option of boosting to your Bernal stack or LEO. If you have an ersatz Bernal, it seems like it's forced. I'm not sure I'm going to play with that, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I just really don't know why you would lose that, but It may be a matter of playability, just not having too many stacks. Because there's a lot of shit you have to keep track of in this that you didn't in the original. It does get more complicated. Intellectual mechanically, I don't know how to quite call that, but it's something where, you know, like if you're doing a lot of simple addition or something, I consider that kind of not purely mechanical, but also not really particularly requiring any thought. And certainly not just complexity of rules, although it can involve that. Dirt side hydration, the sum of water drops in all dirt sides is going to be your dirt side hydration. You can have half as many human colonists in space as your dirt side hydration. If you perform an ET production operation using a dirt side factory, you can have the product appear at either the factory or the Bernal stack. If you do factory refuel using a dirt side factory, the megawatt thruster can refuel either at the factory or the Bernal. Gigawatt thrusters will refuel at Bernals on their own rules, and we'll have to look at that when we get to the gigawatt thrusters module. Essentially what's happening is the dirt side factories are flinging material back and forth to and from the Bernal at no real cost, but there is a time factor to it. For hazards, during ET production, you ignore crash hazard spaces between the Bernal and its dirt sides. Yeah. Well, what makes something adjacent exactly? 14.5a defines what dirt sides are. See, adjacency is weird here, I think. That are adjacent is called a dirt side. C19.4. So how can there be something between me and I'm adjacent? Well, that's, I think, this kind of situation. I think these are considered adjacent, and I got no idea why. I don't know where adjacency is described, but I think it just has to do with if there's a hazard or an air brake or something like that, you're able to get around it, I think. I'll have to fake that and make up rules as I go because, again, I can't find anything on it. You can promote your Bernal if it's got a working generator and is at its start orbit or has a dirt side. Then you can flip it over to its purple by doing promotion. For the orange Bernal, you need a reactor instead of a generator. Solar-powered Bernals, if you promoted it in Ceres or beyond, its generator or the supports for the generator cannot be solar-powered. Well, Ceres is going to be this band out here. So we're able to get out to Mars. We're not able to get out to that kind of grayish band. And that's, you know, like the other sun stuff. It affects thrust. It also affects your solar power generators there. However, if you are a cooperating player has a push factory, then your Bernal can use solar power as far out as Saturn, which is way out here. The first of those pale grays that runs across here. Under the box into Saturn. Okay. A Bernal returns promoted even if it moves away from its start orbit or remains promoted or dirt side. However, if it loses its generator function, or if, for example, if its radiators are decommissioned by an event, it becomes unpromoted and it turns back to its white side. You would have to re-promote it at that point. As long as it remains promoted, a Bernal gives you your privileges, which is the extra colonists, protection from events, from the cards in the Bernal stack, because it basically is a ball of dirt at this point. And then each player has their own bonus advantage. Now, shit, that could be from me. I know I've got the stuff coming in the mail. They usually don't come this early. Dirt-propelled Bernals, they can fuel and move as a dirt rocket. They have a thrust modifier. Their dry mass is maximum of 20. They use 14 to 20 as the lowermost table, the 14 to 15 normally. Their fuel is going to be dirt, and you have to kind of keep track of that to prevent them from selling it as water. The orange self-propelled uses a Nerva engine instead of an electric dirt rocket. Orange has to use water, and that'll be specified on the card. I'm really nervous that there's going to be a door knocking. A dirt-propelled Bernal may land or lift off worlds exactly as other rockets, except the maximum sight size is 1. You're not going to land. There it is. No idea what I got. Probably Mighty Endeavor. But I don't have time to open it. All right. Dirt-propelled Bernal can factory refuel at work site. Yeah, we handled that. Okay, here's another neat little thing, though, and then we stop for a bit. Interplanetary trade, a black card moved by rocket or freighter to a promoted Bernal with a dirt side can be sold as if it was in the low Earth orbit. You can do the free, the not exactly normal free market operation. You sell it based on the victory point value here. There are some limitations, though. If you're selling to your own Bernal, the card sold must be returned to the bottom of the deck. If you sell to an opponent's Bernal, the card sold goes back into your hand, but one of the water from the income goes to the owner of the Bernal. That's kind of cool. Normally when you sell a card, it goes back to the deck. Well, now, if you sell it to another player's Bernal, you don't get quite as much money, and they get a buck off of it, but you get to keep that card, so you can produce it again and send it back out. You don't have to do the research to get it back into your situation. Okay. The product level of the card being sold, however, cannot be the spectral type of any of the Bernal's dirt sides. If it can produce that stuff itself, it's not interested. Is essentially, or stuff kind of like it, made out of the same stuff, whatever. Because it's weird, because, you know, presumably you're the only person holding any given technology, any given goods of that technology. So in a sense, it shouldn't really matter whether or not you can produce it there, because you're obviously all following the laws of IP in this game and never building the same cards as someone else or something like that. But again, an abstraction in the economic system that one just has to deal with. All right, I'll be back to do the Colonist and Endgame module, GW and Endgame modules. 3 more modules left. We've done 2 out of 5. I think my package was Mighty Endeavor. What I most expected to be coming, but couldn't be sure. You know, I got some GMT stuff coming too, and I don't think there's anything else coming from MMP for me right now. I just bought a couple of things, not directly from them though. Okay, the Colonist module is the next one. So the Colonist module, again, you're going to have a deck of these colonists, and you can research them just like anything else, but there is the other form and other way of getting a hold of them using that recruitment. They have their own special information, which could include thrusters. Remember that they can provide additional operations. It costs to do them, and they have a more limited range for each colonist, but it gives you more plays in a turn. And you know, sort of the worst thing you can do in a turn is usually I collect a water token, right? Well, if you've got anything better than that to do, you can spend a water token to do it, and you'll come out ahead. If you don't have anything that's worth more than a water token, well, you probably don't want to do that. You're only allowed to play with the cards once, though, in terms of actually doing a research. But you'd be able to do, say, a research and a purchase if you have the right combination, or a free market action if you have the right combination. So you could actually turn a good deal of money around a little bit more quickly with colonists on the board. And you could perhaps do more than one sale. Okay. I've already talked about elections. The way they work is you're going to have this bid of cash, and in addition, you get votes based on colonists. Now, if there's a war going on, just owning a colonist gives you a vote. If there's no war, colonists in existence with the little election button that is your faction give you a vote. They might have some special abilities. If they have an onboard nuclear reactor, they can be forced to be discarded due to the anti-nuke policy. I assume you don't kill the people, but who knows? Okay, colonists can be boosted, obviously, and then you bring it to a lab, and you can do a promotion and turn it to the purple side. Like the other purple cards, they have futures on the back that will tell you. Okay, maybe they don't. I thought they did. This one has 2 ballot boxes, so he has 2 votes. I swear they have futures. Okay. Anyway, you do it at a lab, and they have different abilities on the other side. They lose their original abilities, usually. Yeah, they have futures. Listed on the promoted side of 6 of the colonist cards, so they don't all have a future. And that may be the case with some of the others too, I'm not sure. Anyway, some of them will have futures, and we have a list of what those futures are. And again, when you get one of these and you want to create it, that's when you start worrying about the futures. What do the futures do? We're not there yet. They're in the Endgame module. It's felonious to voluntarily decommission humans and emancipated robots anywhere except in low Earth orbit, or per the 2 bullets below. If a human colonist or emancipated robot is decommissioned, you put it to the bottom of the colonist deck. You don't get it back in your hand. Your robot colonists and legacy crew, though, go back in your hand if decommissioned. Remember, you build robots, you don't build humans, even if they feel kind of like white cards in a lot of other ways. Robotic ET factory. During industrialization, you can build robot colonists can be decommissioned in place of robonauts in order to start a factory. So you can use a robotic colonist to go out and do the work for the factory in terms of collection and such. Humans can be decommissioned to start a space colony per 6.7b. That's in the original rules. I don't remember this. Anywhere, decommissioning your crew at a factory adds an extra cube for a space colony. They're going to be worth a victory point each at the end of the game. Something I didn't remember doing much of. If upon decommission they have an onboard reactor, this can act as the reactor card for the refinery and or robonaut support. If you promote your freighter card, a colony cube becomes a mobile factory as well. So it's another way to build those mobile factories, though they're easy enough to build. Abandoning a colony cube can be converted into a crew cube, even if a colonist was used to create it. So once you create a colony, once you discard a colonist to create a colony space, all you can ever return it back to is your crew, if you so desire. And I don't know if that was actually allowed in the original, but I don't remember that being... I remember when you decommission your crew, it doesn't really... it just sits out there as a colony. You can remove the cube, but just to increase your number of cubes. I guess maybe in 2nd edition in the living rules or something, it allows you to now reverse that process and turn your cube back into some crew members. The GW thruster, okay, this is weird. Not very long. So these suckers don't use water. Again, there's a deck of cards for the thrusters. I've kind of talked about them. They have generally high thrust and a low cost per thrust, or fairly low thrust but no cost in fuel for each thrust. The no cost in fuel means unless you're using an afterburner like this, which gives what, +4 thrust to it, you're not going to burn any fuel at all. But the fuel is different. In order to pick up fuel for one of these suckers, you have to do it from the right spectral class, the same class as the card has, like this would be from a V. And that fuel, there's a number of rules on how to collect that fuel. The Zubrin drive from the Legacy game also has fuel limitations using this module. And we'll have to see if we have that somewhere. That's the sweet one. We had this in the game I just played. That's very powerful. So that's going to now use S fuel instead of water. How do you pick up that fuel? Yeah, that's a little iffy. You can use a scoop to match it at the spectral site. It'll get you 1 tank per turn. So I tried to figure this out. Factory fueling limits. In a factory you can take 1 tank per turn. In a Bernal you can take 1 tank per dirt side. But ISRU or factory refueling, it doesn't specify. It seems to me that, I don't know. I really don't know. Is it based on the water? That would be what ISRU would be based on, and it's not clearly stated here how you do the ISRU. My feeling is maybe it's meant to be the factory refueling, where you're allowed to refuel one tank per turn no matter what. That you don't actually, that you need an ISRU, but you don't actually compare it to the water levels, because the water levels wouldn't make sense with some of the refueling tools. On the other hand, a dirt refueler, which these kind of are similar to in some ways, just grabs as much as it likes. It doesn't have to worry about dealing with fueling, the time to refuel. So I don't know what's intended here, but given that an ISRU has a value, it feels kind of like that value would be useless unless you were running it off of water. And then it's not, it would seem a little powerful if you could just grab it all, you know, all at once, but it would also seem maybe wrong if you based it on the water level, because, well, some places have no water and you wouldn't be able to refuel there. And that feels not correct to me. So I think it's going to be the 1 per turn for the factory is what they intend. Some GW thrusters and all terawatt thrusters, we've already talked about this, have the 0 fuel use. These are your starships. You're going to need these if you're going to go on the exploration outside of this map, but that's not really an issue in this game. Okay, the starship could be used as a ray gun as per 8.4a, so you're able to shoot people. A starship can enter a synodic comet at any time, so you don't have to wait for the right color to hit those. The idea being that you have enough range or whatever that you can hunt it down. Of course, the time factor is kind of iffy about that. We'll pretend that doesn't exist and play it by the rules, because I don't really believe that that makes any sense. That if this comes into range every now and then, that you would be able to hit it just as quickly within the 1 year rounding error as you would otherwise, that somehow you can magically boost your speed on this thing to ridiculous levels or something. I don't know. Okay. And then again, we talked about the afterburners. Again, the terawatts have their own futures on them when you upgrade them, and you upgrade them in a lab as well. Now the final one's the Endgame module. This is going to make the game longer, but it's why all those futures exist. And it gives you kind of a big goal. So what I found with the original game and the expansion game, especially with the original expansion version, which this kind of replaces, is that you end up just beginning to feel like you're getting to the point where, you know, you're actually building stuff and beginning to produce and everything, and boom, the game ends. And you're just kind of like, ah, shit, you know? And the only other option is to hunt each other down, and that happens. But again, that's the only way to kind of drag it out. It's that everybody's ready to win, and now we just have to violate each other. And there's a lot of fingerprints on my board now. I guess I'm going to have to just live with that, but it drives me crazy to see the staining of the oil of my fingers. So now, to end the game, the number of futures has to be one less than the number of players. So I'm playing with 5 players, 4 futures will have to be completed. Or there's a footfall future, and this is where you bring the Ice Age about. 12 years after that's done, the game ends. And there may be another one. I seem to remember another one that had a 12-year limit, but it may be a different kind of thing. It takes 12 years before the future fruitions, but it doesn't end the game automatically. At the end of the game, you're going to do an immediate election auction, and that's important because there's victory points based on where people are. So this is a time when you can spend your money and your votes to try to get your victory points up a little higher. Okay, we're also going to be using the original victory point rolls. Let's go over these because I don't remember them, and it'll help. So every disc or cube of your color gives you a victory point, regardless of whether it's a claim colony or factory. Outposts and freighters are removed. You get 1 additional victory point for each ET factory. You get each cube on a space venture gives you the victory points created, and these are the space ventures. They give you really special abilities. So first to claim 3 S worlds, first to claim 3 V worlds, first to claim 3 M worlds, and they each have special abilities. So this gives you, I guess, an extra operation, not 2. This doesn't give you anything but the victory points, but this one gives you LEO L2 movement. That's not really that big a deal, except that you get to avoid the radiation zone. And of course, why are we going to L2? Why force it to be L2? Well, I don't know. But no one has changed that, so we'll keep it there. And I think that's it. Oh, there was an election auction at the end of the expanded game as well. Okay. Now, other things you get. You decommission crew or colonists in LEO for glory cubes. Oh, what the fuck were they? It was like the first person going somewhere. Is that these? No, these are the futures. See, they're not on the map anymore, are they? Oh, here they are. Here they are. Okay. So, first manned mission to safe return to any site or these, I guess. And let's see. And they also have this heroism star now, which is an optional rule we're not going to do with it. It gives you 3 victory points if someone's accomplished something epic, whatever that means. But the Glory Arena is worth 3 points each. Let's see. These eat up cubes, 7.1. The first to land a crew on Mars, Mercury, or any science site and safely decommission them in LEO without using a rescue pod gets a glory marker if you return from the site. And anyone who makes it to any site for the first time gets that. Now, those are cubes that you may not want to leave there, because although they give you 3 victory points, and that's worth something, it's worth less than it used to be, because these have been boosted in value. And you have these Mondos here. And cubes are important. So the race for glory may not be as big a deal to players anymore. Science sites are worth 2 each if you have a claim. The government we already talked about. Those are the originals. Each lab on TNO sites or dirt side science sites are worth 4. Freighter, Colonist, and Gigawatt Thruster, you get VPs for a claim on a futures star. A black disc is going to give you an epic fail worth 3. Well, how do you know whose it is? Yeah, I know. Personally, I think that should go over in the Glory Arena. It should be a cube, because it is almost a booby prize type of thing. And now, the final thing is, in ties, whoever has the most water left over wins the game. There's also this Werner's star, where you're going out to try, I think this may be the one where you need the extra map. Yeah, if you have the, so you can play it on this map, and you want to get the TW thruster future before Werner gets 60 years old, and you'll have to count the years. The interstellar victory, you need the interstellar map, and you have to send Werner off in a starship, and if his son gets to a habitable living planet, he wins. And then some strategy, and then of course all the information on all the new cards in here. To me, one of the disappointments is that I paid for the same cards again, that essentially the first expansion's been superseded by this one. This one is not really called the second expansion or anything. It's titled as Colonization High Frontier Expansion 2nd Edition. So it is kind of sensible that it's a replacement, but it does suck, you know, to be one of the earlier adopters who picked up everything. Hell, you know, it's a lesson that I have to learn. When there's something that I think is going to go through multiple editions, don't buy that first edition. If I think it's going to be a rare game, if it's going to be something that probably won't get improved, then I'm fine with it. But I find myself in kind of this situation with some of the GMT stuff too, that I bought, you know, the Great Battles of History in particular. And people who bought, you know, say Wilderness War, now there's a better version out for a while. But every game, if you think the game's going to become popular, hold off on it. If you think it's not going to become terribly popular, well, you still want to hold off, because it'll probably be cheaper within a few years. Of course, if you don't have many games, if you're really excited about one, if you must get it, go ahead. But, you know, Mighty Endeavor, I've got a better version of it. Maybe I paid a little more, but I'd feel screwed if I didn't have this version and I really liked the game. I don't know if I will really like the game, but, you know, one would rather have the newest edition. Of course, then I go out and I buy, you know, an old edition of World in Flames, because I know I don't like it that much. Alright, let's send this up, and well, we'll start playing a big 5-player game of this. Don't expect it to be the most exciting thing in the world to watch, because most of the effort is spent over here. I'm going to try to spend less and less effort describing the specifics of the game, and just try to maybe capture the broad strokes more. We'll see.